let's I want to maybe try to tie this back into the Spider-Man aspect.
Yes.
Talking about free will, about predestination, canon events, things like that. So what's maybe a way if we were listening to uh, systematic geekology, what's a way that we would tie this back into to Spider-Man? Yeah.
Well, I asked you what your canon events were, and you went through a little one there, and you can choose another one. I'll go first. You have some time to think, because I just threw that
Okay.
question right at you. Normally, for questions like that for the show, I try and do outlines so people can mentally prepare beforehand.
Right.
Yeah. But for me, I mean, you talking about, like, is this the right decision to make? Should I leave to go to this church in Georgia all the way from Illinois? It's like, I get it completely. When I was in, I grew up in the church. I gave my life to Christ when I was about 6. And as I was continuing to grow in the church, when I was in high school, in the youth ministry, I started feeling the call to ministry. I started hearing God say, I want you, Christian, in ministry. And Jesse, I couldn't tell you, I ran about as fast as I could in the other direction without like leaving the church or anything stupid like that. Just being like, oh, well, maybe if I do other things here, God will say it's okay. And he was just joking with me beforehand. And so I went to college. I went to college for creative writing with a minor in English. It's like, I've written some books. I've published some of those books independently. And he's allowed me some success there, but there was always a stonewall of like, you're never going to find an agent and you're never going to find a publisher. You have to do it yourself. And then there are things like I was going back. I was home again, living at home when I didn't want to. I didn't want to rely on my parents again at any point in time. I wanted to be my own man, successful and all that. And I was working as a nighttime janitor at my old high school. And I was in misery. It's like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Forgetting, well, that's because I'm not where he wants me to be. And I was applying to go do online classes at UNC Charlotte to get a teaching degree, because teaching is one of my spiritual gifts. And Jesse is the strangest thing in the world. Every single time I hit submit for the classes I wanted to take, they would get erased. It was like nothing would happen. So I restarted the page, refreshed it, and put them in again. Same exact result. I did it again, because if there's anything I am, it's stubbornly stupid when it comes to seeing what's in front of me, because I want to reform reality in my image. Uh-huh. And it happened again. So I went to my dad, say, hey, this is happening. What's going on here? And it happened again when he was watching. So we sent an email to the online person at UNC Charlotte. Never got a response back. It was almost like it didn't even get there. For all I know, it didn't. And then finally, after all this happened, I realized what was going on. And I came to that point of, okay, you're trying to tell me something. I've been saying no to you for years. You want me to say yes. I'm going to say yes. Where do you want me to go? And that's when I started going into searching for seminaries, which eventually was able to bring me here to Louisville, Kentucky, and helped me reach out to former friends. Josh, who was one of the hosts of Whole Church and Systematic Ecology, he and I went to college together. So we had a previous relationship there, and he asked me on the show to be interviewed about being an author. And then I went on some episodes for, discussing like a roundtable stuff we do every now and then, like, how should a church approach science? And then, is the church a cult and stuff like that? And that got me into systematic ecology. And here I am, exactly where I said I would never be. Just like it is, for people like Peter and Miles, they try and say like, oh, well, this is what I want for myself, when reality sometimes says something different, or we think reality is saying something very different, in the way that Miguel, Spider-Man 2099, for those of you who aren't aware, is kind of like, hey, this happened to me, therefore it must also happen to you.
I like that. So I actually have a little bit of a similar story, I think. So I was, again, born and raised in church. My dad's a pastor. And I, from a very early age, had people telling me that they felt like I was called to be in ministry. really, I mean, I didn't probably feel it myself until maybe middle school, high school, around that, like early high school. But growing up in a pastor's house, I saw all the negative that went into it.
Oof.
And so I was dead set. I'm not being a pastor. I will do absolutely anything else that you want me to do, but I'm not going to be a pastor. And kind of like just shrugged it off. Really didn't do a whole lot with it. There's a couple times where I teased it a little bit. So I did some. I was attending the Assemblies of God was the denomination I was in, and they have a it's called Berean School of Ministry, and it's just basically you get your credentials through the Assemblies of God. And so I had done some classes through there, but I hadn't really like stuck it out. Like I did one class, and then I would not do anything for a while, and then I'd do one class, and then not do anything for a while, and then I had very up and down kind of relationship issues. I was a Christian, I feel like in title only. I honestly don't know if I would have died, if I would have gone to heaven. But I still called myself a Christian, but I definitely was not living it anywhere close. And then I had a divorce. It was my second marriage. I got divorced. She had been unfaithful, cheated on me, and I finally had this moment like everything, like it seemed like everything was just going wrong. Everything was going wrong. None of it was right. Couldn't figure out why. And kind of like you, it finally clicks like, maybe there's something to this, Jonah running away and then getting thrown over and swallowed by the fish. And
I identify with Jonah way too much for my own good.
yeah, but what I think is crazy, and that's where I really started to kind of see myself in that story. And then looking back at some of the stuff I've gone through, and kind of how that shaped me. I've always had this. I like debate. My mind is very wired for debates. I love watching debates, and so I was kind of drawn to like the political scene. I would get into politics and economics, like all this stuff, and I would just nonstop. I was consuming this stuff, and I was just finally starting to really take my relationship with God seriously, and I really felt the check that I could walk into anywhere and have someone bring up some economic policy, and I can talk them in circles about it. But my knowledge of God is so surface level. Like I could have a basic conversation with somebody and that's it. And so then I went like a year, I think, with nothing political at all. All I listened to was preaching or teaching and occasionally Christian music, but most of it was preaching and teaching. And I kind of like kickstarted like the love that I had for the politics and stuff just switched over to the theology. And so I just started everything I could. I was consuming just hours and hours and hours of stuff. But so for me, and one thing that I guess you could say as a canon event is, I talked about my marriage had ended. It was a really rough time. It wasn't a good relationship in the first place. But there was, like I said, there was infidelity there. It caused a lot of depression, anxiety, stuff like that for me. But it ended up when I ended up finding my now wife. who she was a Christian, had a very, very solid relationship on her own, did not need me at all. So it was very much a the relation, and she would disagree. She would say the relationship was to her benefit as well. But I felt like it was very much like, I'm sorry, but she's getting the short end of the stick here. But she had a great relationship with God. She was grounded in the Word. She was actually a children's pastor, and so we kind of started talking. But because of what I had been through in the previous relationship, both just with the issues that were there, with the trust issues I ended up having because of that, but also because even at times where I would try to kind of start reading my Bible more, I would start to feel convicted about stuff. It was just me doing it on my own, and then now, there's none of that. It's we pray together every day. We we read our Bible and stuff separately and do our own stuff there, but we also come together and read a lot and discuss. It is very much a relationship that has built me up, or helped to build me up in my spiritual walk, and actually has led to now I'm not, at least not yet, I'm not in any type of official ministry capacity. But part of us moving down here, we both felt like it was, there was going to be, she was stepping out of her role of ministry, because if you're married and your spouse is a pastor, you're both pastors, basically. Like there is no just one of you doing it. And I've said this for a long time. Kids ministry is not my calling. I have the utmost respect for every children's pastor out there. I can do it if I have to, but it is not my strong suit. And so, that was something we ended up, it was a couple years that we were doing that. And then in us moving down here, it's been very much, like I said, we both have felt like it's going to be her stepping out of that role, and us kind of stepping into more of a role together, but kind of me taking a lead in a ministry type role. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. Mm-hmm. We're still praying about it. We're still seeking God about it. But that brought back a lot of the thoughts and memories I had of, hearing some of the stuff that people would say to my dad or about my dad or stuff like that when I was a kid. And then really giving that all back to God. But I think the fact that I had been through the really bad relationship, and then I came back to God, and now I'm in a phenomenal relationship, and seeing what he's been able to do with that when I just give that to him. So now taking that to the next level and saying, okay, you did good here. Now I'm still, I have to trust you with this. This is what you called me to do. Whatever it is, I'm going to do it. And so that's been one that, like I said, I think it's kind of similar. I identify a lot with Jonah and his story. And one thing I think is cool with Jonah, but, kind of going back to Romans where God says, it makes everything work together for good. I think Jonah ended up being even more effective, because when he was spit up on the shore by this giant fish of Nineveh, they worshipped, what's his name? Dagon, I think, was the god, who is half fish. So if you're in a city that worships a god that's half fish, and then this dude gets spit up on the shore that is by a fish, whale, big fish, whatever, that's going to have your attention. And so kind of going back to that whole idea of God knew Jonah wasn't going to do it the first time. Mm-hmm. And he ended up using that to make a even bigger impact, I think, when Jonah finally did say, okay, I'm going to do it. But yeah, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but
Hey, no worries, man. I mean, I think too, and kind of when we look at the film for Across the Spider-Verse, there's this idea that almost seems like they're hyper focusing on the bad canon events, in that there has to be an Uncle Ben figure who dies. There has to be a Gwen Stacy who dies. And when we can look at ourselves too much and go, oh, I can only truly learn through the tragedies of my life. And that's a very terrible idea to have, because there's also really good things that happen too. If you look at some of the images in the movie, you see the marriage, which unfortunately is not happening in the comics right now. And I have very high opinions on how that should be changed. And yeah, but you see like him getting his powers for the first time, or all the spider people at some point, how they got it, and the successes they have in their stories. Well, the same thing should be true of us. I mean, I can focus on, hey, I was unrepentant, I wasn't following God where I needed to be, but there were little things along the way, even before he gave me the call to go to ministry. Like, I mean, when I was a kid, I went to my grandparents' place and to my old dad's room, and he had this book about cryptozoology. You know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not everyone is. I just want to be sure. And it totally fascinated me. It's like, oh my gosh, is Nessie real? Is there a Bigfoot? All this stuff like that. And it grew into this appreciation, not only that my dad and I could share, but that I got really super into. And we went to this would be another canon event. Not only that, but like we went to this conference in South Carolina, because we're from North Carolina. Well, Dad is from South Carolina, but I was born in North Carolina. And I got to meet Loren Coleman, who is one of the premier cryptozoologists in America. And he said, hey, what are you interested in? Because I was thinking about going into a field involved with cryptozoology. And I said, I love lake monsters and sea serpents. And he said, you should do marine biology. And because of him, and I love science, until I got to the point where there was science involving math. And then I hated science. Give me biology any day. So I went to college as an idiot freshman thinking I could double major in marine biology and creative writing. Now, you may notice I didn't say I have a marine biology degree. That is because of all the stupid classes, the prereqs I had to do that involved math. If it was just, hey, let's study these fish, these sea snakes, I would have been fine all day long. But all that other mess, like I failed chemistry. I'll just say it, be perfectly honest. That was another canon event there. That's like, hey, you can't do this, but that failure taught me something good. But the successes taught me that I needed to go elsewhere too. It's because I kept focusing. It's because I got there because of this idea I could be a marine biologist and a creative writer, that I learned, no, that's not possible. But it did make me learn, okay, I need to seek out other people, which got me to go to this church where I met Joshua Knoll and became friends with him. That led me on the path eventually to be where I'm at right now. So I can focus. Oh, it's like, man, I should have never known. I should have always been the person to say it's stupid to think you can double major in two very opposite subjects. Or I can go, oh, I learned something from that. And I succeeded where I was actually good at. And that's what got me where I'm at today.
Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that video. We release new content every week, twice a week, once on Tuesday and once on Thursday. So don't forget to like and subscribe so you always see the newest content we have coming out. If you want to, you can check out a playlist that's down here and it'll take you into another video of ours that we think you're probably going to enjoy. Thanks, God bless.